This is Rudkowski of WeAreChange.org. I am here with Stewart Rhodes of Oathkeepers.org, an amazing organization. Now, myself and Stewart were both on the Southern Poverty Center's Patriots hit list as right-wing extremists, even though we're not right-wing at all. Now, Stewart, you do amazing work with Oath Keepers, making sure police officers and military personnel uphold their oath to the U.S. Constitution.
Well, at least that they understand what their oath is. It's up to them to uphold it.
Yes, and now I recently saw an article saying you guys are going operational. What does that mean?
Well, that means the other side of the coin is our outreach to the veterans, and it's about our own duty and responsibility as veterans to defend the Constitution and honor our oaths. And so what we want to do is get the veterans to understand that with the two great threats to our country, one is a constitutional crisis, the other one's an economic crisis, the veterans can't just say, hey, active duty, please don't violate our oaths, please stand down in some kind of beautiful 1989 East Germany situation, which would be nice, but we have a responsibility to make sure that we're squared away in our communities, and so we're going to lead by example and say, we'll do what we tell you to go do. We want you to get squared away and form neighborhood watches, and we want all the veterans organizations to see themselves as a civil defense unit for stability during hard times, whether it's a natural disaster or a man-made disaster like an economic collapse, which we're very concerned about. We want them to take responsibility for their own community security, and so we need to lead by example. I want to be able to walk into a veterans hall and say, I'm not asking you to do anything we're not doing ourselves. And so we're forming our chapters into teams, and we're using it kind of a loosely modeled on the SF way of doing it. Special Forces has an A-team that has at least two specialists, like two communication specialists, two medical, two engineering, and then intelligence officer. They've got, or NCO actually, and they've got their two weapons specialists. So in our teams, it'll be two communications guys or gals, two medical, which are critical. You can't improvise communications or medical, very difficult to do. And then two engineers for emergency power, water, clean water is critical, things like that you also have a difficult time improvising. That's the skeleton core, then a security element to take care of them and then provide security for the neighborhood or for the town. And so, but really it's a model. It's not that we want everyone to go join Oath Keepers and join these teams. We want you to see this as a working model that you can replicate in your own neighborhood. We'd love to see ground zero, everyone's establish a neighborhood watch that has some communications, some medical capacity, and some engineering. You can improvise defense, but you can't improvise medical. Either you got it or you don't.
Why do you think this is necessary right now?
Because we're concerned, well, first of all, to back you up a second, Americans are supposed to be doing this anyway. We're all supposed to be the militia and well-regulated militias in our states. We don't have that anymore. We need to get back to that. So this is kind of like a stopgap on the way back to an actual state militia, preferably established by state statute under the command of the governor and all that. But we don't have that. So what can we do in the meantime? Well, sheriff's posses are great. If you have a chance to be on a search and rescue team or a volunteer fire department or a sheriff's auxiliary reserve, we also advocate that everyone go do those things. Strengthen whatever is there. But if you don't have any of that, start it. And if you do have that, I would still also start neighborhood watches. And I think every single VFW hall, American Legion and Marine Corps League, what they are is civil defense units. So they're already there. They already got a building. They got officers. They got money. What are they doing with it, though? So we want them to get very serious about their local security. And why? In the short term, the reason is because there's a huge economic freight train coming our way. The dollar is on its way out. People don't realize this, but China is already decoupling from the dollar. And just the other day, they published an article where they said in a Chinese newspaper, which is owned by the Communist Party, they said that it's time for a new paradigm, a new world order, they said, where the dollar is no longer the reserve currency of the world and it's replaced by something else. So the handwriting's on the wall for the dollar. It's going to go down. When it does, it could be very much like it was in Argentina in 2001 during their collapse, or even worse, like it was in Germany and Austria and Hungary during the collapse in the late 20s.
Yeah.
So
anything's possible. So this is a way of creating a community of people that are in your area, in your neighborhood, where you could work together. Right. And if something happens, hypothetically, the community would be there for each other.
Sure, and you see this after every hurricane or earthquake. What you wind up seeing is people standing on their front lawns with shotguns and rifles, stopping any looters or any bad guys trying to take advantage of the situation. So, all you guys out there, you're going to wind up being your town or county or neighborhood security team anyway. You might as well get squared away ahead of time. Why not get organized now rather than trying to do it on the fly?
How can people get involved? What's the first step, other than just contacting you on oathkeepers.org? What should people do? What's the step process? What's the next step they could take to create a community within themselves? And whatever tips and recommendations you have.
Well, the first thing they should do, I think, is throw a block party. Get to know your neighbors. Most Americans, the only time they see their neighbor is on Halloween when they knock on the door to trick or treat for about 20 seconds. That's it. So throw a block party, invite everybody in the neighborhood. Then you get to meet them. It's kind of like Sesame Street. These are the people in your neighborhood. You know, you find out who the retired doctor is, who the retired nurse is, the retired cop, maybe the current serving police officer or National Guardsman. You have no idea who your own neighbors are. So go learn who they are over a beer or soda, get to know them, ask what they do for a living, what they've done in the past. Then you get an idea of who you have around you. I'll bet you got a lot of those skills already there. A ham operator in your neighborhood, most folks would have no idea who that is, but they're there. So, you know, throw a party, get to know them, and then after that, you can walk up and say, hey, you know, how you doing? I'm Luke. I'm the guy that threw the party over there. Like, oh yeah, man, that was great. And you can say, hey, I'm starting a neighborhood watch. I just want to know, how do I get a hold of you in case someone's breaking in your house and say the door's kicked in and I'm walking by and see that? What, you know, is there a cell phone number I can call you on? You know, will you be a designated place for kids to come if they have any problems away from school? You know, stuff like that people already do in neighborhood watches. And focus on whatever's going to appeal to them. It might be crime in your area. It could be natural disasters. You know, I wouldn't say, you know, the economy's going to collapse. You need to get ready for Armageddon and the road. I wouldn't do it like that. Yeah. I'd say, hey, we should be organized to take care of ourselves and each other. That the local liaison officer of the neighborhood watch is Officer, you know, Joe Blow. He's giving me these pamphlets and organizing neighborhood watch. And just, you know, at least entry level, would you mind being on the list of people I can call on in case something's going on? You know, and also sure, you know, or like I said, you ask for a number to reach them in case something's going on to their place. So then you get your foot in the door, and then when you throw in the block party, you already know who the retired doctor is, the retired nurse. Then you go talk to them about that and say, hey, we're going to make sure you have the stuff you need in case something's going on, and we don't have outside support. We're going to get the medical gear that you need, and I would provide it for them. If I got a retired doctor in my neighborhood, I'm going to give him everything he might possibly need to take care of people.
Now, this sounds like a great idea. It's great to have people in your community come together and create a self-sustainable place where people could help each other out. But there's two people who would argue against it. The people who are super paranoid, right, and the people who are not paranoid enough or not concerned enough with what's happening to this country. You got the preppers who are saying you shouldn't be building a community, you shouldn't trust anybody else, and then you got other people who are saying you're too paranoid, you really don't need this. What would you say to both of those arguments?
Well, to the preppers, I would say this: the secret prepper model of not letting your neighbors know you have food and planning to just hide in your basement or your closet is not going to save our country. It's not going to save your freedom. It's not going to save the Constitution, and really, it's not going to save your life in the long term. Because all it means is you'll be the last one eaten, but you'll still be eaten. So if you're worried about, you know, zombie biker hordes rolling through, there's no way an individual prepper and his wife and kids are going to be able to defend themselves against MS-13 or any other, you know, biker gang or gang out there that comes through. They can't do it. They're going to get rolled right over. And so you're going to have to organize. And the other thing is that this is what we're supposed to be doing. If you call yourself a constitutionalist and you believe in the Constitution, then the founders expected you to take this responsibility on yourselves. You're supposed to be the militia. So you need to get off your butt and take responsibility for being an American. And don't put your own skin first, put your country first. This is in the long run the way to be most secure. It's in communities that you're more likely to survive whatever disaster might come. And you can be cynical and say, well, my neighbors are dumbasses, they'll never listen. But hey, like I said, you find out who the veterans are, who the retired police officers are, the EMTs. You go and find the people that are most likely to be, you know, good contacts and most likely to listen, and you work on them first. You know, you find the ones that are the high result or people to talk to. It's like triage. Focus where you're going to do the most good.
Now, what about the people who are saying you're too paranoid, you're too afraid, why, you know, there's no point to doing this? The opposite side of that. What would you say to people like that?
Well, like the SPLC said, oh, that's what FEMA's for. Well, once again, they're ignoring the fact that in our own history, look at half of the fire departments in this country, in every state, are all volunteers. A lot of your local sheriff's auxiliaries are volunteers. They're unpaid volunteers. So you already have this. You even still have remnants of the militia. You got state defense forces, things like that, military reserves in certain states. So are they saying we shouldn't be doing those things either? So there's already, and of course, FEMA itself has the CERT program, the Citizens Emergency Response Teams are training, and so they want you to go get trained. So we're doing what FEMA says, but because we're not the right kind of people, because we're not, I guess, Birkenstock wearing leftists, they get mad at and angry at us for doing this.
But look what happened in New Orleans as a perfect example of how incompetent and I'm not going to curse, but how horrible FEMA actually is.
Well, sure. Yeah. Well, I'm saying, so the first thing is we should be doing this anyway, and we already have local response teams, but they're not enough if you rely on the feds to come in and help you. Like during Hurricane Katrina or Sandy, you see overwhelmingly again and again that it's just not enough. Top down doesn't work, it's bottom up. Exactly. You have to make sure you're squared away in your family, in your own community, in your own neighborhood, your own church, your veterans hall, work your way out. And then, yeah, it should be part of the county. And then hopefully part of the state. The state militia should, where's your National Guard? That's supposed to be your militia, right? Where are they? Most of the time they're overseas. They're in Iraq or Afghanistan. They're not here. In fact, that happened in Louisiana. The Louisiana National Guard was deployed overseas during Katrina. That's why other National Guards had to come in and help.
In New York City during Hurricane Sandy, you saw Occupy Wall Street, which had a huge network, a huge organization of communities and people come together and create Occupy Sandy. And they were pretty much more of an effective resource group, a helpful group than anything else, because it was just local people helping out local people with what they could. And it really showed how humanity could come together and be there for each other without a big FEMA bringing in trucks filled with asbestos or other horrible things down and just messing things up and making things complicated. I think it's an amazing idea of just trying to organize people, bringing people together, and being there for each other. It sounds like an excellent plan, and is there anything else you'd like to say on it?
Well, I think we should report the Occupy Wall Street people to the Southern Poverty Law Center, because obviously they went operational too. So they must be extremists. They actually helped each other. Can't have that. You got to rely on FEMA. Yeah. So that's a great example. I don't care if you're, and here's the other thing, is I don't care if my neighbor is left, right, Republican, Democrat. It's not about politics. It's about making sure we can take care of each other. It's ground zero, security, shelter, clean water, medical care, and communications. Who could be opposed to that,
Let's stop looking at our differences and let's see what brings us together.
Right.
That's the main.
Good people than bad people. When the good people are not organized or disorganized and all by themselves in their house, that's when the bad people can prey on them. But when you're all organized as good people, and a really good example right now is what's going down there in Michoacan, Mexico, where the people got sick and tired of being victimized by the cartels who had bought off the police, they had no police protection, and so the people that rose up against the cartels are running them out of town, they're hunting them down, and against the people, the mass of the people, the cartels couldn't do anything. So, like I said, there's more good than bad, but if the good do not organize and the bad do organize, then they can have an immediate monopoly of force over you. The cartel can come in and run over your house, but they can't run over a community. And a gang of thugs, whether they're private thugs or government thugs, cannot run over your Vietnam veterans or your VFW in your town. There's too many people that if they're well organized together, it can't happen. And that's the answer to people who are like, oh, you should be fighting, you should structure secret cells for the future revolution. It's like, wait a minute, if you're worried about the government oppressing you, the way you counter the secret police and the threat of that kind of stuff happening, what Solzhenitsyn talked about, cowering in fear in their homes, the way you counter that is organize as a community. They can't come in and crush a community. And I think that's what SPLC is most upset about, is that they understand. They want eventually to have the secret police come to our house and take us out because they don't like our politics. But they won't be able to do that if the whole community is united together and is not divided. You can't divide and conquer us if we're a community. Yep. So that's the answer to that.
Now the SPLC is the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is funded by DHS and the federal government and has multiple sources, connections with other big banks as well. And I hope you guys at the Southern Poverty Law Center look out for the WeAreChange block party, which is going to be happening in a few weeks. Occupiers, communists, libertarians, socialists, you're all welcome. Thank you, Stewart, for everything you're doing.
I'm down here again for this memorial. I'm a veteran of World War II. All of us veterans were all in the same boat.
Ask you one more time. Do you think we face possible tyranny in America?
I still don't. Yeah, even though, with evidence like that, or,